Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Creators Outlet right here on the Outright Geekery Network. We just want to give a big shout out to our sponsor for this video, SpinWiz Comics at spinwizcomics.com. It is a comic and webcomic discovery platform for comic book readers, hosting mainly independent titles. Currently, there are 86 independent creators with a library of over 400 titles and growing. Some of the most notable publishers on the site right now are Source Point Press, Tidal Wave, Marcosia, A Wave Blue World, and Arcana. Majority of the content is free to read. That's right, I said free. You can purchase PDFs on the site, and 70% of the profit of the PDF goes directly back to the creator to support the creators. You can download this app on either iOS or Android, absolutely free. And there's also a built-in royalty program, or rather, loyalty program. I'm adding letters again. Every page of comics you read, they will enter you into a monthly, quarterly, and yearly giveaway as long as you're signed into the app. No subscription is necessary, but if you like, currently right now for $1 a month, you can get all the ads removed, plus you'll get a bunch of bonuses. You can check it all out at spinwizcomics.com and download the app anywhere iOS and Android can go. And here is a quick word from our sponsor. All right, now we want to welcome W.S. Quinton from Subpoena Publishing, and he has a pretty rad-looking book. Tell us all about this book and the trail you're blazing with it, since you've sold out of issues of #1 and are going back to press.
Right. Thanks for having us on, Will. Sonoma Publishing is my personal label. 47 Furious Tales is our first comic series that we're putting out. It's a 12-issue limited series. Issue 1 was crowdfunded on Kickstarter last year. We had about a 500 comic press run, which turns out I should have ordered more, because when you're a real small press guy, it absolutely sucks when you run out of books, you know. But we're taking Issue 1, I had a new cover commissioned for the second press run, following some suggestions from a few of our backers from the Kickstarter campaign and some folks in the indie community too as well. That cover was done today and is ready to go. It's sitting at the printer. We are going to go live here as soon as the campaign is approved on indiecrowdfund.com, which we're expecting probably a little bit later tonight, so it should be active tomorrow. And we've got really great opportunity to get these books out. And the thing is about it is that this particular campaign isn't actually funding that printing. I'm already doing that. This is just to get the books into the hands of new readers and get it out to the retailers who are participating on Indie Crowdfund. We're going to get that out so more folks can enjoy 47 Furious Tales. And this is a samurai epic that's basically retelling the story of the 47 Ronin, but with anthropomorphic characters to represent those historic figures. And we actually start before Asano Naganori's trip to Edo that basically doomed him and his men, to kind of give us a feel for what their life was, what was going on, and we fill in some of the blanks in the historic record with some creative licensing, I guess is a good way to put it, with a few subplots to add in a little more drama. But so far our response has been absolutely incredible.
Well, the book looks gorgeous, and we were talking before we went live, and you were telling me about the quality of paper and cover that you used on this book.
Yeah. We went really to the best quality materials we could get from our printer, Mixum. This is one of the first press run copies. This is actually my personal copy. And with this, we have 130-pound grade satin type paper, which is basically named after the texture that they have for it, with a soft touch application on it. So this is a really hugely heavy cardstock for you with 80-pound interior pages. And so what you have is a book that's designed to last for years and years and years, that just holds its color and just stands up real well. This particular book has actually never been in a bag or board. I keep this on my desk to kind of keep me motivated and working. So that should tell you after a year on my desk and it still looks like this. And Alexia did a fantastic job on illustrating this book. The colors just pop all over the place. And so our new cover for the second printing was also done by Alexia. And she took that in the direction of really taking inspiration from the wood block carvings that were pressed during the Edo period. And the cover is just stunning. Folks will be able to see that right on the page as soon as we launch. Pardon me.
Yeah, it looked amazing. As soon as I saw like the cover of this book, the back of my mind linked it with another book called Squarriors.
Yeah, I've actually seen that too. The lady who created that, an amazing talent. The storylines are of course completely different, but I think that it's really flattering to be compared to such a great comic. The inspiration here, obviously, when I was writing this, I took the 47 Ronin story, the story of the Eiko incident, and I tried to look at movies that were made by Kurosawa, and try to use that method of storytelling in the series, so that we kind of get this feeling where a lot of the action is telling the stories in particular key points.
Now, do you have a background in history?
I studied history briefly at college when I went there the first time. It's kind of been a hobby of mine, but I'm not really a historian. I was a competitive martial artist during the 80s and 90s, and I did a lot of reading of the classics, the Book of Five Rings, several of the pieces regarding some of the ancient stories and histories from the Edo period in particular. And when I got ready to write this, I went back to a lot of the historical records, and then also went and looked at some of the theatrical plays that were produced, the 100 years or so after that, to try and extract some of the information from that to keep it as authentic as possible, except that we have anthropomorphic animals.
And where did the idea to go with the animals come from?
As weird as it sounds, I was writing at the time. I was writing another book, an RPG book, and I had a few scripts for different concepts that were laying around. One of them was a retelling of the Eiko incident. It had kind of the plot line narrated out, but it didn't have the anthropomorphic animals in it. And I looked up, and on my Twitter feed, there was a little GIF that came up of two squirrels fighting with lightsabers, which has been making the rounds for years. And then right after that, there was just an image that someone posted in response. It was a little squirrel wearing full samurai armor, full regalia. And I just thought it was really kind of cool. And I was like, I could make that work. I could so make that work. And so when I pitched it to the artists that I work with in a work group that we maintain, Alexia Velhausen, who's the artist on this project, leapt at the opportunity, and she's been killing it ever since.
Oh yeah, I mean, just one look at that cover, I'm like, it's totally badass.
Thanks. She did a fantastic job. And the cover actually for issue 2 has been done as well. This is a big 11 by 17 version of that for the prints that we're going to be offering at the Kickstarter campaign late October. That's the one of the 47 named Kinemon, who unfortunately doesn't always get the attention he deserves for his participation in the Eiko incident. He was really very critical. Almost knocked my comic off.
Oh,
but with issue 2, we're really excited because we've got we're going into that campaign with 2 variant covers. One by Paul Walcott, who is a Kubrick School grad as well. He's been doing a lot of manga work lately for a couple of big companies. And then also Wednesday of this week, I just signed a contract for a cover to be done by Fernando Ruiz, who of course has done Betty and Veronica, Archie. He's done a number of Betty Page covers. You know, it's been Die Kitty Die that he's done as well, and just on and on and on. The man's career goes all the way back to the 80s. He's absolutely brilliant, a teacher at the Kubrick School as well. And so to have him on the project is just incredible. And one of the artists I've commissioned before happens to color him pretty often, and that's Nick Capone, and he's going to be coloring that piece. We're expecting to have the inks on that already by the 15th of October, and then final coloring will be done by January 1st. So we'll have all of that done and ready to push the button on our orders for fulfilling on that campaign. Actually, before the end of the campaign, we'll be ready to roll.
Now, where did your background in comic books come from? Did you grow up collecting comic books, or is it something recent?
I don't remember a time I didn't have a comic book. When I was really, really little, before I could even read, my grandfather and my dad, my uncle, they would always pick me up, comics when they were at the store or something, because they could hand it to me and I would just page through them and page through them and page through them. And when you're 3 or 4 and you're paging through comics, there's no telling how many comics I destroyed because I was a kid. But it was always something I really, really enjoyed. In fact, after I stopped competing with martial arts and everything, I actually went to work for a paramilitary security company for a rather long time. And it was weird. I would leave, and no matter where I went, I could always find comics. And so I would come back from wherever I'd been and have new comics with me. And so, sometimes it was ones that I'd never heard of, and I just picked them up because I thought the cover was cool. And it was just a really, really neat thing to find in common everywhere I went.
You're like a comic book ninja.
Oh, if only I weren't old and round now. Maybe I could be.
Oh, welcome to my world.
I'll be 50 in November, so I'm kind of feeling that.
Oh, good. I'm already there, but I'll be going ahead a year ahead of you in November as well. So
there you go. Time keeps us marching on, right?
Oh, definitely. And my wheelchair keeps me marching on.
Gotcha. No, I mean, I literally, when I was a little kid, I can remember they would, my dad, whoever I was with, if I went to the store with them, we would stop and pick up a comic out of the comic rack. And my grandfather would always get me the little bubblegum cigars. And my dad would always get me peanuts and a bottle of Coca-Cola in the old little glass bottles that we had in the 70s. And so that was me as a kid, is, comics in the spinner rack, man. Comics right there, left and right. Oh, and even up into the 80s when I lived in Idaho and there wasn't much up in the section I lived in, we would actually drive all the way out 60 miles to go to the grocery store, and they had comics there. So literally everywhere I ever went, I could always find them.
Yeah, I started collecting. Well, I started buying them back in 1974. So I was, like 4 years old. And, I grew up with the reruns of the Batman 66 show, which I thought was the greatest thing ever. And still do, because I still watch it almost every day. But there was a pharmacy, mom and pop pharmacy at the top of our dead end street on the other side of the main road. And every Sunday morning before church, my mother would say, "Come on, we're going to walk up to the drugstore." And I'd get like all happy and run outside. And we'd walk up to the top of the street, cross the main road. My mother would pick up prescriptions in the back at the pharmacy part, and then get the Sunday paper for all the coupons in the front. And then she would give me, the spare change, and I'd run to the middle of the store and start spinning the rack to see what I was going to buy. And, it's been, pretty much nonstop since then. When I was 15, I discovered my first comic book store ever, because there weren't any around me. And I've been going to that same store, different owner now. The manager ended up buying the store from the original owner. But I had worked there like multiple times. And, I just haven't stopped. Now I'm getting rid of a bunch of my collection to just concentrate on a few titles that I really like. I'm not too happy with a lot of modern comics. I'm actually a lot happier with, the small press and indie scene, because the big two are just, crapping on my childhood. So I'm just not too happy with that.
I'll tell you, I've seen some remarkable stuff come out of indie comics lately. I mean, just some phenomenal creators. You've got people like Adam Watson at Gunslinger Comics out of Oregon, who's been doing indie comics for, 10, 12 years now, just still putting out books on his schedule. They're ready when they're ready. He doesn't force them out. He puts everything he has into his stories, and it shows. You've got Madeline Holly Risen, who, if you had to describe her writing for her comics and her novels and everything, because she writes everything, I would probably call her writing elegant, is probably the best way to put it. The way her comic panels run into each other, the way she has them scripted out, is just beautiful. People like Mike Shea with Miskatonic University, just people telling great stories, having fun with it, and putting their books out as quick as they can to people who are just waiting to get the next one, even if it's only a month or two. Sometimes, folks are like, "Man, I wish you could do it twice a month," And these folks who are putting everything they have into the quality in their stories, I mean, they're not answering to shareholders, and neither am I. I answer to my conscience and to the memory I want to leave to my kids when I hand this company down to them one day. And I think that's one of the things that's really making indie comics such a strong avenue for people who are comic book fans to find titles that really speak to them.
Yeah, because indie comic creators are putting their heart and soul into a project. It's not one of the big two IPs that are just okay, do this with this character on this issue and that's it. It's like there's not a lot of creativity. There's a lot of talent working at the big two, but there's not a lot of creativity because they have to operate in between these two fine lines.
I'll tell you one project I've got kind of sitting on the back burner at the moment is a small children's comic that's named after my youngest daughter. I just call it Super Willow, and it's basically about being a little kid and being in kindergarten, first grade, and then basically the way this title is being developed, it ages up as she goes through the grades, and then later on there's some other stuff that'll happen that I'll let people wait and see for it. But that's one of the fun things I'm looking forward to bringing out as well, to keep kids in comics, because I think comics are a really valuable medium to help keep promoting kids to read. And while I'm partial to physical copies, kids today, they have tablets all the time, and so digital comics, man, for the little ones is a real big boom if you've got something that's appropriate to their age group. And I think that's where we'll see the next generation of comic fans coming up, is folks who are saving their entire collection on their tablet and then keeping it backed up, because you can't lose a single title, right?
Oh, not at all. I'm like, I've got so many of them. I landed in a coma back in 2016, and I was renting my friend's house. My daughter and I, at the time, she was like 7 years old, and a buddy of mine went and packed up, all my collectibles and books and my daughter's toys and stuff, and he's still got it in storage. And because of COVID, I haven't been able to get people to go to his house to get it.
Now, if you don't mind me asking, how long were you in a coma?
About 3 months.
Oh, wow. That's horrible.
Yeah, they made the rounds to friends and family of mine that were on the list. And, they pretty much told him, you better make final preparations now. He's not coming out of this. And then one day, I woke up, but I was they had to do emergency surgery on me. So they did like close to 24 surgeries on me before I came out of the coma. Well, 24 procedures. And it was such extensive surgery that they had me on a double morphine drip. So yeah, I was pretty much tripping balls. They had to give me a tracheotomy.
Right. Yeah.
And one day I thought I was in a fight with somebody and that I ripped their throat out, and it turns out I ripped out my tracheotomy and threw it across the room.
Oh no.
And I scared everybody. Can you breathe? How could I talk to you if I couldn't breathe?
That's terrible.
I'm still crippled now with limited mobility and handicapped and everything. But when I first came out of it for like close to 2 years, I was pretty much paralyzed from the waist down. So, and the moral of the story is, I still want my comic books back.
I don't blame you at all. I don't blame you at all.
He wants them out of the house, and wants his garage back, and wants his he's got a big storage container in his backyard. So he buys bicycles and fixes them up, repaints them sometimes, and just resells them on a part-time basis. So Doug here, general storytelling and, dare I say, art quality in most indie titles have surpassed DC and Marvel lately. Just an opinion. In a lot of cases, I would say you're pretty much spot on there, Doug. And
I know that Doug too. That's Doug from the State of Nirvana podcast. They do live plays of Delta Green.
Oh, well, welcome.
Yeah, I know that icon. He's good people. He really is. He's good people.
That same icon is on a pint glass I keep in my cupboard too.
Oh, okay. See, I wish I still had all my Star Wars stuff. I had, the second most devastating thing to a private collection behind a natural disaster, which is a divorce. And
yeah.
And so I joke about it, but now you might notice, like on the wall behind me, the big poster is for my own book. So yeah, a lot of the merchandise I've been producing, it's ending up on my walls right now. Need to replace my Star Wars poster still. I'll never find one in the same quality again.
Oh yeah. I've loved many women, but never enough to think, do I really want to lose half my shit?
Well,
nope.
It's sad. It's sad when to give you an idea, like one of the movie posters that mysteriously vanished was one I got as a kid. When the theater finally stopped playing New Hope. And so I got the movie poster from the theater. And so I loved that. It was beautiful, and no telling where that ended up.
In a fire in the woods or something, probably.
It's heartbreaking. It really is.
I know. I had a couple of break-ins in an apartment, and I used to be a big Broncos fan. And
we won't hold that against you, man.
Okay, thank you.
Don't feel bad. I was a Saints fan for the longest time. I know, right? That I was that guy. There was 5 of us, and I was one.
Well, I gotta tell you, buddy of mine is actually a Saints fan, and every time we'd be sitting at the bar watching sports or whatever, and his team would come on, he'd be yelling, "Who dat? Who dat?" And every time he yelled it, I'd slap him right in the back of the head. And but I had an Elway autographed jersey.
Oh, sweet.
And framing costs a lot of money.
Yes.
But I had this thing, shadow box framed, and it was mounted up on my wall, and that and a whole bunch of other stuff got stolen out of my apartment. And I think I was spitting nails for like 2 years.
I've been really fortunate. I've never had none of my places have ever been burglarized. I did come back one time from a job. I was at this place doing this thing, and I came back for about 3 months. And my landlord lived right behind me. He and I had gone to high school together. And so he had been watching my apartment for me, because I made sure the rent checks came in. Everything was cool. And I came home and I was back. It was the very first night I was back. And I was sitting at my coffee table unpacking stuff. And so I had my sidearm was on my on my table. And I heard someone hit my door. And I'm like, everyone knows, no one knows I'm home yet. So I'm standing there, and this poor SOB hits my door again. He hits my door again. And then I hear something tinkling around in the door. And I'm like, oh, okay, I get this. So I got up, I grab my sidearm, and I go to the door, and I'm waiting, and I'm waiting, and I'm waiting. And finally I get tired, so I open the door, and this dude standing there, he's like, oh, crap. He's like, you won't shoot me? I'm like, that's the dumbest last words I've ever heard. And he took off running, and I called the cops. I have a perfect kill count of 0, so I'm trying to keep it that way. Yeah, he took off running like crazy. Police caught him like a couple of blocks down the road. So I guess I was close to getting burglarized, except I was home.
Yeah. It's like, come on in. I'm just sitting here with my Glock. Don't worry about it.
It was actually a Bursa. I carried a Bursa at the time.
Nice.
Because I was on a budget.
For the longest time, I just carried a slingshot because,
Those are good.
I was a special kind of broke, but I was a good aim. It was one of the forearm brace ones.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You load buckshot in those, and you'll put holes in signs, man. I mean, those things carry a wallop.
That was the point. It's like, who did it? Oh, it couldn't have been me. I've only got a slingshot. So why don't you tell us about some of the people in the comic industry that inspire you?
I tell you, the people who really inspire me at that high level, Brian Polito. Brian has this amazing ability to produce quality books, not just consistently, but almost religiously, you know. And even after all these years that he's been making them, it seems, from my perspective, like he's just getting better in his writing, his story development. It really, really is impressive to me. Some of the other people I really, really admire their ability: Amanda Connor, Jimmy Palmiotti, Jimmy, and the same thing with Jimmy. Jimmy's books just seem to be getting better and better. Hey, Mr. Absher, how you doing today? Thanks for the well wishes on the Kickstarter. I hope you'll check it out when we launch on the 21st. Jimmy's books just seem to be getting better and better over time. And then we got Billy Tucci and his work on She. The Indiegogo campaign and the Kickstarter just ran. They're fulfilling right now. And that book is gorgeous. I mean, absolutely gorgeous. They did such a fantastic job on that. It's hard to believe the level of quality that people are putting out, literally working from home, you know? And then from the indie crowd, folks like I said, like Adam Watson with the Dark Slinger comics. Definitely Madeline Holland Rawson, who's Boston Metaphysical Society, right? Mike Shea and Miskatonic University. Sam Johnson and Geek Girl, for that matter. The list goes on and on and on. So many of these people doing so much great stuff. And then there was a gentleman who I believe it was last year, put out a book. The gentleman's name is Brian Hawkins. And Brian, I think, has the potential to be one of those great comic book creators. I mean, one of those folks that people remember a couple of generations down. His work is absolutely wonderful. The first book of his I supported from one of his crowdfundings was called Cornrows. And I read that book and I felt like I had just seen something that I shouldn't dare to forget. It was just a really interesting way that he told his story, the way he and his artist collaborated to make it visually immersive. It was just really, really quality stuff. If you haven't had a chance to get it, definitely pick that one up, because Brian, between that and his subsequent projects, he's told some really interesting stories, and he's just getting started.
Yeah, there's a young kid, or at least he looks young. So like if he's old and looks like this, I just hate him. But Connor Bartel, he's out in Alaska, and I had him on months ago when I first started doing this, and he's got two by Quinton samurai comics.
Oh, really?
But he was a little kid in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
Damn him. And I just hate feeling old.
This means he's got more good life ahead of him.
Yeah. And so of course, he loves Venom. I'm like, eh.
Mm-hmm.
And but he loved the 90s indie stuff, specifically the black and white books.
Oh, yeah.
So he's got two books out right now. It's going to be a 3-book arc.
Mm-hmm.
One is called Swords and Silence, and the other one is called Swords and Sorrows.
Oh, nice.
And then there's going to be a 3rd chapter, which will wrap the entire story arc up. But just looking at his crowdfunder for the 2nd issue when I saw it,
Mm-hmm.
reminded me so much of the classic Lone Wolf and Cub.
Oh, yeah.
That I had to jump on this. And within 3 months of starting this podcast journey of mine, my funds were completely depleted. I went to go pay my comic shop for my monthly $100 box that they send me. It was like, denied. I'm like, what do you mean denied? So I called up the card number. It's like, yep, $5.32. Like,
Oh,
the hell?
no.
Hell, I just paid my rent and my cell phone. I should still have like $300 in the bank. Nope. Because I forgot about all the Kickstarters I pledged to when I first started doing this.
Oh, I gotcha.
I fell in love with every book that, for the creators that I was talking to, and, backed it. Connor's book, I did the catch-up tier, but I had to keep one-upping myself for everything. I did the catch-up tier, but he had regular physical copies, and then he had the sketch edition physical copies.
Oh, yeah.
So it was a double book. You read the entire book, and then you flip over, and his written out full script with notes and everything is on one page, and the original pencils for page one are on the other side, but back and back. And I'm like, it's just a gorgeous book. And I'm like,
that's a pretty cool idea.
So. Oh, he's writing an entire article now. I think is great for the opportunity for indie artists to break out is an amazing opportunity for upcoming new comic book artists. And, very true.
Now, I'll tell you, I'm not an artist. I can't even draw a stick figure. I mean, I can diagram a map or something like that. But so I raise my crowdfunding so I can pay my artists the best I can. I actually have a bit of an advantage on that because the role-playing game community for my role-playing game books has been very supportive of my crowdfundings too. So a little extra money from that goes into comics and other projects to help get those rolling. But yeah, the indie crowd has been really, really good to me as a new creator. With one comic out and 10 RPG books out, and or wait, that's not right. It's 8 RPG books and a couple other RPG products. But yeah,
yeah, I get it. Math is hard.
Yeah, it's been a long day. Getting other books started out and being able to get access to these wonderfully talented professional comic artists. I've been really very fortunate. I mean, I've worked obviously with Alexia Veldhausen. I've worked with Christian Martinez, Nick Capone. I've worked with Brian Lee. I've worked with Rebecca Elizabeth Coulthart, Kelsey Cohen. All these really fantastic professionals, and then some really great, just self-taught, amazing talents. Phoenix O'Ferry, who did the cover for my very first book, absolutely gorgeous. Then we got Lotus Blair, who's done several pieces for me on a number of different projects. Sandra Cole, who I was fortunate enough to actually commission the very first commercial for publication piece that she ever did. And let me get that. This is a small card version of the piece she did for me.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah, she does some amazing work. My daughter actually has a 24 by 36 inch poster of this up in her room. So it makes it makes a big difference. Edwin Abreu Luis out of Puerto Rico. I got to work with him too. Just some real amazing people, and Paul Walcott now and Fernando Ruiz. It's really great. I can answer that, Mr. Absher. I want to do both. I want to keep making RPGs. I want to keep making comics. My hope is to eventually get to where we have an audience large enough that I can start making cartoons. Would be the pinnacle of where I'd like to be at. want to put out a couple of novels in the next few years too, but I'm really focusing a lot on the role-playing game stuff and the comics first. Comics, from the labor perspective, as a writer, are a little easier because I can take the script, revise the script, work with the artist, revise it, hand it to the artist, get the material to the letterer, and a lot of my time in between, I can be writing other projects, scripting other books, things like that. RPG stuff is kind of like the exact opposite. I send out a thing to the artist. They ask a couple questions. We get everything figured out. They do that, and then I'm stuck writing, 40,000 words or whatever, So it's a wonderful thing. I love doing it, but it is time intensive, So it's one of those things that can keep you working late into the wee hours of the morning.
So now I have to ask this, because the links that you gave me, I didn't know exactly what was going on when I saw, a digital version of issue 1 available on an RPG site.
Right. Drive through comics and drive through RPG. They're the same one. Yeah.
And I'm just like, is this a comic for an RPG?
No. Although Alexia does want me to develop this into its own RPG setting, that's probably further down the line. But no, this is completely not RPG related. Most of the comic titles that I'm working on right now are not RPG themed. The one that arguably could be called that is this dystopian fantasy comic that I'm working on right now. So I've got 5 comic titles in development at the moment. So
is that it?
Well, that and then the RPG stuff on top of it. So it's pretty busy. Plus
yes.
My day job. Plus I'm a single parent who, with my daughter living here. So it keeps me pretty busy.
I think you're slacking. You're never going to get that Star Wars poster back.
I'm probably never going to get the Star Wars poster back. I might one day get to replace it, but God, I don't want to think about how much that's going to cost.
I'd be more apt to just buy like one of the fathead wall murals of like Dale and stuff to put it on there.
That's a good idea.
And then but then I'd go nuts because I'm like I'd want to get every single air bubble out.
Yeah. I'll tell you though, it's the weirdest thing to be in the position now to be creating and have so much. Doug, no, ETA is pretty easy. I'll get that real quick. ETA on issue 2. Art is going to be done full colored on November 1st. Lettering is probably going to be done the 5th, 6th, or 7th, somewhere around there, depending on how fast Brian gets through it. And then we'll begin fulfilling immediately after the Kickstarter campaign. So I'll be ordering the comics probably the week before the campaign ends, so that we can have that in as quickly as possible. The idea being to try and get fulfillment rolling by Thanksgiving, so that people have those books coming in the first part of December or the end of Thanksgiving if we get end of November rather, if we get really, really fortunate with the shipping times.
Now, does this mean you're going to be running 2 simultaneous campaigns? One on Indie and one on Kickstarter?
Actually, no. The Indie crowdfund one is only set up to go to the 15th. Its primary focus is to get to distributors and the folks who missed out on getting issue 1. And then any extra comics left over from this 3,000 press run that I'm running will be allocated for use for rewards for the Kickstarter campaign for the people who didn't get it from the first Kickstarter campaign. Yeah, 47 Furious Tales itself is going to be 12 issues in all. That's been outlined, scripted, and is just waiting the funding as we go along to keep Alexia busy on getting the art done. So it will be 12 issues. Yeah, they're being offset print. The first round was as well. We had, like I said, it was only a 500 copy press run. So yeah, these are the best quality books I know how to make right now. And they really came out pretty well, I think. One of the things I'm really proud about is how sharp, and you'll have to forgive my webcam's kind of not the best, how sharp these pages are. Alexia did just a simply fantastic job on this. And one thing we did with the original Kickstarter, and that we're going to do through the first, is there an MOQ for printing? Is there an MOQ? I'm not familiar with what you mean by MOQ.
I don't know what it is either. So
it's probably something I should know. Been doing, putting out books for 3 years, but I should know it probably, but I don't recognize it. Is there an MOQ? I'm not sure. If you can tell me what that is, I can more intelligently answer that question. We had a daimyo tier, and what that basically is the person who was the daimyo tier backer got to work with me to construct a haiku for the book, and they also got the issue dedicated to them. So issue 1's dedicated to Alyssa Coleman, who was our highest contributing backer at the Daikyu level, and the haiku for issue 1 was, or it is, I should say, deeply rooted tree, I must leave you behind, the scent lingers with me. And I thought, minimum order quantity. For the printer I use, I believe it's 100 for offset, or maybe it's 150, something like that. But like I said, with the reprint that I'm ordering for issue 1 with the new cover, we're ordering 3,000 copies with a big push to try and get it into some retailers. So here's a little tip from me to everyone who's watching this. An individual copy, including shipping in the United States, we're offering for $9, printed on the same heavy stock that we did for the Kickstarter campaign. Each one's going to be signed by me. It's going to be bagged and boarded. It'll have the art print with it, which I put up. Well, I'm sorry, man. We've got an art print of the illustration of Aiko Castle that's going with each book, and they ship in their Gemini mailers anywhere in the United States or the territories for $9. And that's the biggest part of that is really the shipping. So we have a retailer tier that's available for your comic shops. And since we get to distribute the cost of shipping across multiple copies, we're able to offer 20 copies to a shop for $45. So that should let them be able to put the book in your hand for its suggested retail at $4.95. Yeah, I mean, Alexia and I both signed Doug's copies on that one. Alexia is now actually also playing on the Delta Green game with Doug, and she's a fantastic voice actress as well.
I used to be in radio because, I have the face for it. So
I wish I had the voice for it, You've got that good, solid baritone. I kind of sound a little squeaky, but it could be because I just had a lot of dental work done, too, so that probably isn't helping anything.
Well, you would be perfect for the cartoon, for the animation eventually, to play the Ronin then.
There you go. I'll tell you, if I had my choice, if I could pick anyone, I would want to have George Takei play Asano Naganori.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, actually, yeah, Doug. For that question, Alexia and I were just talking about what to do after issue 12. We're bouncing around a couple ideas. One of them's a Western I want to do. Because I can't disclose who this was for, but I got approached to write a 5-issue arc for a Western comic. Pending final signing of contracts on that, we'll see what I can announce on that later on, because they got to pay me and give me my contract, but we've been in talks with it for a couple of weeks now. So here's hoping that's going to come out.
Ooh, I'm always down for some weird Western tales.
Yeah, I mean this. I can't go into a whole lot about it, but this one's actually going to have all humans. All humans. It's going to be, I think, more in the range of some of the classic Western novels than it is for some of the current age comics that we see. So we won't. It'll be a lot of grit.
I see a lot of gold and silver age Western books because a buddy of mine up in Maine used to have one of the most impressive collections that you would probably see from Golden Age on. When he retired, he started selling his collection. It bought him a lovely house
Oh wow!
on a crap ton of land up in Maine,
Oh wow!
where him and his lovely wife retired to. It also paid to put all of his kids through college and a bunch of other things. He has offered to donate what he called a very beautiful book to us to give away on the Boomer podcast
Mm-hmm.
right around Turkey Day.
Which book is it? Can I ask?
I can't reveal it yet
Okay.
because he has said one thing, like he on the podcast, because every Christmas he sends friends of his out books.
Mm-hmm.
So when he was a guest on the podcast, he told me for Christmas time that he was sending me out a very nice Silver Age X-Men book. And then he made a post 3 days ago. He's sending me out a very nice early edition Marvel Tales of Spider-Man and the Frankenstein monster.
Oh really?
So I'm like, oh, that's cool.
That sounds pretty good.
But he was going to send me out, I think, a Daredevil book to promote and give away. Heavy action like some Sergeant Rock comics would be fantastic.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of room for that right now. I do. I think there's a lot of people who would like to have some old school comic action going on. There's been a couple of comics that have come out written by guys who came back from Iraq and Afghanistan that I've seen. I'm hoping that they'll continue those. And in fact, I think we've got one coming to Indiegogo, if I'm not mistaken, here in January. Thanks, Mr. Absher. And we're going to be on Indie Crowdfund too for the reprint. So check that out when we go live here, probably tomorrow. Or maybe tonight, actually. Depends on when they approve it.
Yeah, we still have to get Mike and Mindy on the show too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they'd love to be on. I don't really know them personally, but with the site being so new, I think that it would be an important thing for them to explore.
Yeah, they wanted to come on, but time and last time I spoke with both of them, they had a sick little one to contend with.
Yeah, I heard that the little one was ill.
So yeah, I know how that is because when my daughter was little, it was like she would turn into the Exorcist. She'd get ill and vomit, and it would go like a good 40 feet.
Oh,
I'm like, even on my best drinking nights, I could never puke 40 feet.
My youngest is a whopping 6 and in the first grade, so she's something else. She really is. It's interesting to be a father with kids so far spread apart in ages. Like my oldest son was born in '95, and she was born in 2014. So, starting all over again.
Yeah, I only have one. She's gonna be 13 next June, and I'm already getting the modern day teenager lip.
Ah, yeah, that's no fun.
Now, and being a child of the 70s and 80s, you know, you know, child abuse then was, if your parents punched you in the face,
Yeah.
not really. You were very naughty today. I'm offended, and that's abusive. No.
Yeah, I'm pretty strict with her, but I think she's better for it. Um, we are in lockdown here in Kentucky, and so I actually live in the capital. And the problem is it has like the highest or one of the highest incidents of COVID in the state right now. And so she's been schooling from home the entire time that she's been in the first grade. And then after she gets done with schooling and I get done with my day job working from home, then it's out to ride bikes around and get her to learn to ride her bike and every other activity we can do outside before getting back in the house and making dinner, getting her cleaned up and heading to bed and doing it all over again. And then when she's in bed, I'm up writing and formatting and promoting the books, usually till about midnight, 1 o'clock. And then it's bed and rise and shine and get back to the grind.
All my friends and relatives that are homeschooling their kids now, we always make jokes. So, what time does the child go to sleep? Okay. And what time do you open an adult beverage to relax? Well, 30 seconds afterwards.
Oh, I actually don't keep anything in the house.
I just drink coffee.
I drink too much coffee, but I'm working on that. That was my suggestion, Doug. And originally I wanted them to all be squirrels, but Alexia made a really good point in that it would make it hard to differentiate characters, which is really the same reason why superhero comics, they all wear different costumes. You can differentiate them more easily. And so with 47 Furious Tales, we went from being, in the early conception of it, from being all squirrels to being squirrels and foxes and monkeys and rabbits and all these other hamsters and all these other anthropomorphic animals. And I think the book's much better for it.
Now, do you read any current comics right now?
I was reading Batman last year, and then I kind of just stopped and was focusing on the indie comics I was reading. So I've been reading, I think the ones I've really been reading the most of are Boston Metaphysical Society and Miskatonic University. And then I read the issues that are out of Tainted by Dean Kish. I think is how his last name's pronounced. That's actually a book I really enjoy too. Then also I picked up Trouble's Back from Joy Pineda. That's actually a lot of fun. I really like that book. And then I'm waiting for Mojo Rising from Raj Mahan is the one I'm looking forward to, and I should have that probably pretty soon. They're working on fulfilling that campaign, so I'm expecting that anytime now.
Yeah, that should be really good because I'm glad that's in fulfillment now.
Mm-hmm.
Because anybody that's been on in the Madness group has just had to listen to Pop promote that book for a year and a half. So, like, oh, are we going to talk about another book? Yep. And on an off note, because I like collecting like just certain things,
right?
And nowadays mostly older things, but I'm waiting to get my entire collection back so I can, I'm sorting, as you can see, boxes open behind me. I'm sorting stuff. So, I've been collecting Batman and detectives since I was 4 years old. So I'm obviously keeping all my Batman detectives.
Right.
I'm going to keep my my Wolfman Perez Titans run, especially since I just got a print out of George Perez's personal collection of the actual artwork for issue one of the new Teen Titans.
Really?
The Baxter #1, where it had the big shadow of Raven's oak in the background with Jericho running and everybody else on there. I actually got that double signed by Wolfman and Perez.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a thing of beauty.
How'd you find that?
Well, I am in a sales group for this guy out in Arizona, and no, he's in Illinois. My mistake. The other guy's in Arizona. And he has a private sales group, but he deals with a lot of like those overpriced variant covers. But he's built his business model up to now. Outright Geeky was one of the sponsors for Comic Online earlier this year. But I don't know who they're using for a news source this time. But they took him, which is Stephen McDonald at Clay McDonald Comics on Facebook. He's their official like CBCS guy, for this one. So he's handling like all the signatures and the verifications and everything. And he did a special deal one night with Wolfman, Perez, Bob Layton, and Jim Starlin.
Wow.
So yeah, I got all of those. I didn't get all of them. I would have actually loved to have gotten like an old 90s Valiant print from Bob Layton signed. But I got the next best thing. I got the print of Demon in the Bottle signed by Bob Layton, because I will never be able to afford an actual copy of Demon in the Bottle.
Well,
a beat up copy, yes. A nice copy that I would actually want to buy.
Right. I'm sure there's one somewhere in a storage shed waiting to be saved.
Oh yeah. Let's see. Doug has another question.
Oh, a favorite panel or scene from issue 1. I think that
this is a chance for you to show off your book on your desk again.
Yeah, it is. I think that honestly, my favorite is actually the first 2-page spread of the book. And this is where Alexia did up the graves of the 47. What's nice about this is that this is actually based on photographs of the actual graves. And if you look very, very carefully, you'll see that she attempted to copy the lettering from the tombs. But now neither one of us speaks Japanese, so all we know is that's probably not right, but it's as close as she could get to making it so. But I think this is probably one of my favorite. Probably my favorite in the book. The other one that I think really always leaps out at me is the image of Chikara right before he cuts down this bandit. And I wish my webcam did it justice. But this image right here, this panel, is just so intense in the glare and just the anima of the moment that it really struck me. The first time I saw it, when she sent me the file to get formatted into the book, I was literally just stunned for a moment, because she literally took the scene that I'd been describing and just blasted it right onto the page. And with issue 2, I'm getting in inked leveled images right now, and every page has just been another step along the story. It's just watching it come alive right in front of me. It's probably the most amazing thing I've found about creating comics so far, is that when you work well with an artist, especially a really, really capable, talented professional like Alexia Veldhausen, and if she's watching, get back to work. she's she's a little miracle worker. She really is. She's just incredibly skilled at her craft. And if she has a question, she asks. We talk about the scenes, the panels, and then she puts it on the page. And what a lot of people don't realize is that she works in kind of a hybrid kind of manner. She produces the actual sketch and everything, and then takes and prints out the art page, and then takes her ink brush and uses like this physical ink brush technique, reminiscent of some of the styles of the ink brush techniques that were used in Japan in some cases, to get this done. And then those final pages she then scans and digitally colors up. And so what's nice about that is that leaves the original art pages. And so I actually have the original cover art for issue 1, and then she's keeping the cover art for the second cover, for the printing for the second the cover for the second printing. I'll get that eventually. I'm getting the cover for issue 2 from her, and my intention is to get the cover art from each of them, and that will those are going to be placed around here so that I never forget that excitement. And I'm thinking about offering the cover art with the Daimyo tier starting in this next Kickstarter, but I'm kind of finding it hard to pry that away from my own greed. But if it's good for the campaign, I might actually talk myself into doing it.
Now, can you tell us about some of the perks you're thinking about for issue 2?
Oh, yes. So one of the things we're doing is we'll have the smaller art prints, and then we'll also have the larger 11 by 17 art prints. Yeah, Alexia's already signed this one, which is the cover of issue 1. We're going to be signing the ones for the cover of issue 2. And then we're going to have 2 variant covers. One by Paul Walcott, which is a really beautiful piece. I wish I had it printed so far. But it's going to be shown digitally on the campaign. And then Fernando Ruiz will be presenting us with our third cover, our second variant. Nick Capone is going to color his material as he's done on some other projects. So it's a really finely honed team that's working on that. And by the way, just so that we're clear, that's not something that we're waiting on the Kickstarter for. Those guys are paid. It's done. They're working on it now. We're trying to get this to where we can get the book funded so that we can fund just the last few expenses on art and lettering, the last little remaining of it. Get the print run done for each of the covers, and then just start distributing. Boom, 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 boom. We don't want people waiting 6 months for a book. So, which was a mistake I made the first time around. We were only I forget how many pages we were in, but we had a couple of months left to work to figure out everything. And then we ran I think we were 2 weeks late on projection, I think. My hope is this time we'll finish in December with a published fulfillment date of January 2021, but I'm really shooting for getting it done before Christmas, so that everyone has their books in hand, and instead they're not waiting months and months and months. They're literally getting it, just as soon as we can get it through to them from the post office.
Now, do you have any special swag besides the posters?
Well, between the art prints and the three different books, there's a couple other things that we're kind of batting around. One of the things that kind of depends on is if Kickstarter is going to accept me into the add-on beta. You probably heard that they have their add-on feature is in beta test right now. They basically made it so that if you were one of the creators they selected, you could apply for this. So like Jimmy Palmiotti, I asked him about it, and he's going to be looking at that because they enabled him. Mike Shea, he's going to be utilizing this feature. I would imagine Brian Polito will probably have it, given that he's one of the most successful comic producers on Kickstarter. But I was able to apply for it, so at least I know I have a chance at it. If we get that, there's a couple different things I'd like to pursue with it. I need to get a few more quotes back from suppliers. In the past, we've done T-shirts and mugs. I'd like to probably try and do some smaller items for this. Particularly, I want to look at maybe doing some pins so that people get like a Sinopa Fox logo pin or a 47 Furious Tales, one of the Ronin as a pin. But I'm still waiting to hear back from some of the suppliers on what we can get those priced down to. Because I don't want to put an add-on on there that's going to cost someone, an arm and a leg and, put their kids in debt. I don't want to do that. So what we've got, for example, print copies on the Kickstarter are $5 plus shipping, period. Basically the same price you would pay in the store, except the shipping has to be added on. And we were able to do that because of the economy of scale from having so many copies printed. So I'm looking forward to being able to put more physical copies in people's hands at a more friendly price point.
Now, here's a big question, because you're doing the reprint of #1 on Indie Crowdfund,
right?
And then you're doing issue 2 on Kickstarter,
right?
Will you be putting issue 2 over to Indie Crowdfund once it's funded?
I expect to, because I expect Indie Crowdfund. I expect to meet goal. My goal is very, very small on Indie Crowdfund because, like I said, book's already done. I'm already about to, cut the check for the printer. I just gotta wait for the campaign to go live so I get my discount. Our goal on the Indie Crowdfund is actually only $45 because we don't need a higher goal on that. And for that one also, since it doesn't have a separate thing for shipping on there, it's just, one price and that's what it is. People on Indie Crowdfund, they can get the issue 1 for just $9 anywhere in the United States or the territories. And then, of course, their shops that are on there, the retailers, they're getting the same price point the retailers on the Kickstarter campaign for issue 2 are getting. They're getting 20 books for $45, and that includes shipping.
Now, the reason I asked that question was because if issue 2 moves over to Indie Crowdfund afterwards, is there a possibility of people getting issues 1 and 2 together that haven't gotten the first issue yet?
If we have copies remaining of issue 1, because like I said, we're putting issue 1 out there now. I expect to move a lot of them between some of the retailers I already deal with. And then, for example, we had one retailer in particular, they kind of wanted to give Indie Comics a try. I made them a good deal on copies from the original press run. I sent them the books. They sold out of the books. They asked for more, and then some RPG stuff. I sent them those books. They sold out of that. I think they sold if I'm not mistaken, I think they sold 23 copies in one shop. And then one of the shops in New Jersey that carried us, they sold 15. which by my thinking is a lot to sell in a small shop in northern New Jersey, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But apparently folks dig it, so I'm thrilled. My position is, if I can make a couple of dollars on shipping a box to a store, it is worth it by a mile in the long run, because people will be able to get that book without having to individually pay the shipping that you have to append otherwise. And so it really, even as a business model, it means more, because even though your profit on that is smaller by quite a lot, you have the potential to move a lot more books, and more people get to enjoy your stuff, which is more important in the long run.
Yeah, it's usually, especially in the indie market, it's usually more important to get your story into the hands of more people
Right.
than to, do like certain larger companies like to do by padding their numbers. The store variants, the 1 in 25s that,
You see, I'm not adverse to doing a store variant, but if I do a store variant, I mean, I have to be able to cover the art costs, the print costs, all the shipping costs. And the problem with that is I pay my artists well, and that's
Mhm.
one reason why all the artists I work with are still working with me. I mean, Alexia has been working with me for 3 years on this project and others. And I mean, Brian Lee been working with me for 3 years on this project and others. Rebecca the same way. And actually, there's only one artist that I haven't been. Well, no, there's two artists I haven't been working with very much. One, because she's had some things she had to deal with. The other is just a gentleman who couldn't meet his deadlines, so we had to stop utilizing him. But everyone else is just perfectly fine. And the lady who had some other commitments, I mean, when she's available, I'll certainly use her talents if she'll still take commissions from us, because she's just remarkable.
The thing I was trying to get at before when I
Mm.
mentioned Clan McDowell was, because of, you know, working at Outright Geekery, I get like all the PR from various things.
Right.
And I knew prior to this, I knew this dealer called JJ.
Hmm.
Well, I call him JJ because it's easier than saying out like his big, you know, 3-word name.
Right.
Um, and it's comic book, so JJ. Uh, he has been in the comic business, retailer side
Mhm.
for about 40 years, and he teamed up with another store owned by Jen King, and together they came up with the Comic Book Shopping Network,
Oh, cool.
which is a private group on social media.
Hmm.
You have to be vetted to get in,
Right.
and everything else. And there's like 10 stores, and their working motto is, because you know live auctions are a big thing, especially in the year of COVID,
Right.
and they were pretty much a big thing before COVID too. So their business model is, they have X amount of stores, and each store has a block where they go and do live sales on the network. So 10 stores, each store gets their show, and they do it every single day.
Oh, wow.
Jen's store, her store is a huge supporter of indie comics. One of her rows, because she's got like the metal racks that, like the end cap one,
Yeah.
and then you have like the thin metal one with both sides of the books, and it just goes down. Her store is like, really pretty big. and she has over an end cap full of nothing but indie books. And I noticed this because I saw another one of Travis's books on with the mainstream books.
Mhm.
And I'm like, oh, I see indie comics. And she's like, oh, we love indie comics. And this network just got a deal from Scout Comics
Oh, cool.
where they get exclusives from Scout for every number one and every trade. Started like, last month. So every book Scout puts out, every store in this network gets to order through their network how many copies of, whatever, say like Grit number 3.
Mhm.
Here's the artwork for your exclusive, CBSN covers. How many do you want? So
That's pretty sweet.
I just thought that was, an interesting thing. JJ isn't. I don't think he does. He doesn't do a lot with. He doesn't do really anything with indie comics. But Jen's store has a huge indie selling, and I know there's a shop down in Florida, Danny, uh, and he's already ordered from indiecrowdfund.com.
Mm-hmm.
I think he was the one that ordered like 13K worth of the boobs.
That's a huge mind-numbing amount of boobs right there.
But really, is there ever a wrong amount of boobs?
Yeah, none.
Yeah. Welcome to my world again.
Although
I
hope they get a
should,
chance to see 47 when it goes live here in a little bit, because that's gonna be, I think it's gonna be good for everybody. It's priced to help the shops make some money, because COVID has been so hard on indie comic shops, on the ones that aren't like big parts of chains and stuff like that. It's been really hard on. But like the little small mom and pop comic shops, particularly, they need something with some margins on there they can sink their teeth into.
Oh yeah, I think all like the larger small press and the two big yahoos should follow Ross Ritchie's business model of, we're 100% behind all our books. If you order these and for some reason they don't sell at your shop, ship them back to us and we'll give you credit on your bill. But that was the big, twisting the ceremonial dagger in all the mom and pop comic shops' backs when Diamond said, "Whoa, we have exclusive distribution rights to anything. You want any comics, you go through us. And oh, by the way, we're taking away any newsstand deals you might have had. The newsstand still got them, but we're not going to let you get them."
Yep. And now DC's backed away from Diamond.
Yep.
So we'll see how well that works. I have some friends who run some shops, and they've had some delivery problems that have come up, but they're hoping to have those worked out soon.
The guys from Comic-Con line last year, they went through, because DC's got like 3 distributors right now. If not,
that sounds right.
And the one that they ordered through, because they didn't know who to go through, the first one they ordered through, they said, "We're not going to show you any of it, but we'll just say that the book showed up worse than if Diamond shipped them themselves." So they had to get all kinds of stuff worked out, and then they switched to one of the other three, and everything, all the shipments were on time. Said they were impeccably packed, and they went like as far as I know, since they switched the other ones, they haven't had any damages.
That's good to hear.
But I think they're like a smaller, they're a smaller outfit, but they're looking, to increase. But then again, it doesn't help when, a company chops 40% of its line off.
Right. Yeah. Well, the thing is, I think that we're going to see a lot of indie books filling those holes because shops are going to have books to sell to keep the lights on. And the big thing I see with indie comics is that one of the hard parts is to try and point out to folks that, people have for a long time expected to pay more for indie books, but if you're getting a large enough press run, that's not necessarily the case. Like the first runs of 47 Furious Tales signed with everything because of the shipping and the small press run size, those books went for $15. And that's including shipping and all that. But being able to get that price point down so dramatically, and really the two big parts of that were getting a larger press run to reduce the cost per books from the offset press run in bulk. And then the second thing was some shipping controls that I put in. I got the stamps account rolling so that I could get a premium rate on postage with the USPS, for example. And my packaging has always been really, really tight. But if you carry it down and you get weighed at the post office, I was actually paying a little more than $2 more than I needed to by just taking it to the counter at the post office as opposed to using the stamps account. So that makes a hell of a difference right there in and of itself. And that's just for like the single issue, So getting those pricing points under control by controlling the processes behind them has been a real big step for me personally. And I talked to a lot of other indie guys, and I'm trying to get tips from them and giving tips from stuff I found and just networking and sharing stuff. And I think that when people come together like that and find solutions to common problems, then we'll make a better indie environment. And everyone who's coming in, if someone says, hey, how do you do this? When you have a dozen people saying, oh, it's easy. This is how you do this, and this is how you do this. And there you go. And then you'll get someone who says, well, what if we do this? And it's a better way, then everyone benefits. And what happens is downstream, you have people who are reading comics and their indie comics prices are coming down as a result of it. And I think it starts with that on the indie creator side, and then it meets up with the shop when people can get those books to the shops in a quantity that makes the shop money and gets it in people's hands at a really reasonable price. And hopefully we're getting closer to that every book.
Most definitely, because I mean, you've got a great price point, even with the shipping. Like the first book you said was $15 out the door,
Mm-hmm.
and issue 2 will be $10 out the door.
Yeah, 9, 10, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to. It's always better to round up and then say,
yeah, that's a good point. We'll call
I got 37 cents back. There's a coin shortage. There's no coin shortage. That's a bunch of crap.
But yeah, I mean that's true. It's really I think kind of a big deal. I mean, with indie books and crowdfunding, you have to make the extra money to pay everyone on the team. Well, except for me, I get paid last. I get paid on subsequent sales. That's kind of how I do my model. I don't make my money on my crowdfundings. Like in fact, the indie crowdfund campaign, the monies realized for that are just going to go back into 47 Furious Tales for more subsequent issues. Because we're already producing it at the highest quality I can get from the printer I have right now. And going to keep doing that the entire line.
The problem I usually have with indie comics isn't the quality, the art, the story. It's all, nowadays it's all top notch again. It's no longer the 80s and 90s. Even though I love some of my 80s and 90s indie books. But the problem that I run into for me personally, for instance, even say $15 for a book shipped out the door. That's a great price point. When I see somebody else charging $25 or $30 just for the physical copy, plus another $10 for shipping.
And see, I think maybe I'm just a little weird in my business thinking. I'm kind of a big believer in making you make a little bit of money to give the best value to the customer, because you don't, as successful businesses throughout history, they don't make all their money all at once. They make it a little bit at a time. That's like Coca-Cola, make a little bit on each bottle, a penny or 2 pennies or whatever it was on each bottle. And then, as time goes by, that gradually increased to scale. But for me, really, if I can make like 30 cents on a copy that someone's picking up from a store and paying $5 for it, because it's okay for me to make, $4.80 on a box I shipped, right? Because I'm making money on that. If that's my net, then that's my net. Because then I've got 20 people at the shop who have the book, and not only do they have that book, but they have a price point that lets them still pick up their Batman title or still pick up their Spider-Man title, because I think that there's real value in providing the most bang for your buck for your reader. And I'll tell you, Peter Smeddy, I keep mispronouncing his name. Their newsprint titles at a really, really low price point, and they get their stories out. That's a really, really tight model where they kind of depend on that. They make just a little bit per book, and they send out to as many stores as they can. I would like to make a little bit of money per book, but I'd like to have it the highest quality papers and the just the really put together materials, and try and bring it in still competitively with the other prices of books on the shelf. Because for 28 pages, $4.95 is unfortunately not all that uncommon anymore. $3.95 would be nicer to me, but the world we live in means that we have to have some price points to give the shops the meaty end so that they can keep the lights on. Because we can't lose our comic shops. If we lose our comic shops, then we're all buying comics in Walmart, and we won't have the diversity that we have now.
Yeah, and there's you're not going to be able to find anything.
And before Walmart sends a hit team after me, I'm not decrying Walmart, so take the red dot off of me. But it's just that there's been so long where we haven't had comics in our big stores. Even like in Kroger here in Kentucky, they stopped carrying comics for years, and I'm just now starting to see comics starting to appear in some of the Kroger stores around here. It's really very sad that they were gone for so long, because the kids who were in there all the time, some of these kids 8, 9, 10 years old have never seen a comic book.
Yeah, I know. Just it's just insane to me. A big part of that is the fact that we need more all ages books.
Yeah. When Super Willow comes out, it's going to have a digital format, and it's also going to have a print format. That will probably be the first print book I do in the newsprint format, because I'm one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to donate some to one of the local schools that my daughter's at. because obviously, kids need to have something they can read. But I think that if you take the time and just write like you're writing for your own children or your own grandchildren, I think there can be some real value in that, to create comics like that and put them in the hands of even very small children, 3-4 years old, just like I was in the 70s, 3-4 years old, looking at the pictures in a Superman comic because I couldn't read yet. That kind of thing sticks with you, and it gives you a passion for reading and for discovering stories. And I think it's better for everyone.
Mm-hmm. Get your kids hooked on comics. That way they'll never be able to afford drugs and alcohol.
I know, right?
Well, I solved that problem.
And then 30 years later, they're saying, just saying no to JLA. Has your child been reading JLA? Do you know what they're doing? They're sitting in the library reading. What is this about? Well,
the more you
crack
read,
kills.
the better.
Comics are collectible.
That's why that's why years ago they started the Free Comic Book Day initiative, because, wow, these people were right. We give kids comic books, and it's something fun and characters that they like, and, good stories, and they'll read it, opposed to us, giving them a copy of A Tale of Two Cities.
Yep. Or the Upanishads, for that matter.
Yeah. I almost said A Tale of Two Titties, but
that's because you're waiting for your copy of Boobs.
I'm waiting for my variant copy of Boobs. Yes.
I'll tell you, I would actually really like, really like to see more retailers pick up kids titles.
Mm-hmm.
I really, really would. I think it would do everyone a world of good. Even if it's something, even for very, very small children, 4, 5, 6 years old. I think that's really a very, very critical age. And because, with my kids, that's usually when I started handing them comics. And I'll tell you, it was really amazing, even when it was stuff from Disney and from Warner Brothers properties and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like all of my kids have had Scooby-Doo comics, except my youngest, because I can't find any Scooby-Doo comics right now, which is really depressing. But my LCS locally went out of business, so I'm having to go further afield.
Yeah, that's a shame.
It is. It really was. And then COVID's been really, really hard. One of the stores that backed 47 Furious Tales, successful Kickstarter funding, the owner actually died from COVID back in May. So that was really hard, because he was really very supportive for us. He was out in the West Coast. And then the guys in the East Coast at the Gotham Underground, they've been hugely supportive of us. The collective down in Altamonte Springs, they've been very supportive of us. Some shops in Lexington, Kentucky, have been pretty supportive of us. Haven't really seen a lot of support out of Louisville yet, but I'm going to be spending some more time talking to those guys in my coming weeks. Did actually just speak with owner of a larger shop in Cincinnati, so I'm looking forward to seeing what their interest level is in bringing 47 Furious Tales to the Big Sin.
Yeah, most definitely. The just a little bit back onto the price point issue, because
sure,
it's a big thing, and it's the thing that Pops likes to go back to all the time, where I would rather go to my local shop and be able to buy 20 indie books for cover price than have to pay $10, $20, $30 a pop for them because of shipping.
I agree. I'm going to be the first one to agree, honestly. And Will, you can take this and hold it in your hand, and it'll still feel empty because there's nothing there but words. But it's the truth, is that I would literally rather, make less money and have comics in the shops so that we have more fans who are able to afford the book than to try and make $5 off every book. You know what I'm saying? Because it puts such a barrier up for people to be able to get into comics. When I was a kid, if you told me a comic book was, in the 70s, if you told me a comic was $1.50, that was too much money. Because at the time we were getting comics for like 35 cents when I was real little. And then, yeah.
Yeah, I know, right?
You know what I'm saying? And then we get up to the 80s and we're getting into like the 65, 75 cents. And I remember the first time that I saw an X-Men comic for $1, and I was like, man, because, before I could get, two comics for, $1.40 or $1.35, or even a couple of years before that, I could get two for $1. And so it made a big difference financially to a poor kid, trying to get his comics fix on. Mm-hmm. But that's just the way pricings work. And I think that's one of the things that keeps hounding on me, is that, I want to eventually make a living out of this, but it doesn't have to be at an expense level that causes difficulty for other people. Honestly, I would rather sell 2 books at a shop and make like, 35, 25, whatever the markup is a piece on those, than sell one $10 book and make, $3. Because and don't get me wrong, a lot of people don't have local comic shops, so the $9, $10, $15, whatever price point is kind of, unfortunately, where we're at. And a lot of that's shipping and shipping materials. But if you can get it to where people can get those books in, then it makes a bigger difference. I like to put together tiers where people have the option of adding on extra copies, so that you can cut that in and package it together. Your shipping costs don't actually go up as much, So like with 47 Furious Tales issue 2, I'm hoping, and again, we gotta wait till the last checkout of all the shipping rates, because what'll happen is in October the USPS postage rates are going up for the holiday season. And so I'm going to double check the math and make sure all the rates are finalized, but then try and get everything in a nice, clean price point so that folks can get into the book, have the options of getting more than one copy if they want more than one cover, get the fun stuff, and not worry about not being able to support another creator, not being able to pick up their order at the comic shop. And yeah, I'm making the same price point available on Kickstarter. So we'll see here. Doug, do you think that younger, particularly millennial comic readers, care as much about buying books from a brick and mortar store? Are they more comfortable with digital POD due to the fact that they're more used to that model? I think that there's a little bit of a trick in that. I think that when you're looking at, you got to remember, millennials are people ranging from 30 to 19, really. And so you've got folks who, a lot of them are very, very internet savvy, but some of them come from poor backgrounds like me. I wasn't like impoverished or anything, don't get me wrong, but we were, working class stiffs. And when you have that, some of these kids didn't grow up with internet in their house. They had their internet at their school, And so I think that a physical copy is very reassuring to that mindset. But now, that being said, like I said earlier, these folks are also very familiar with technology as they mature. So when you get to those adult levels, 25 and whatnot, they all have tablets, just like almost all the little children do now from their schools and whatnot. Well, I think they're going to be more comfortable with digital in future years. And on one side, that's going to be better for the creators because it'll be easier to distribute. It's going to definitely cause a lot of the competition for that. A lot of people are going to be vying for that attention. But and there's the argument it might be better for the environment. But I think that when you go to just a digital content format, then what you're going to lose on that is you're going to lose that thrill of collecting. And I think that for that reason, if no other, we'll still see people producing in paper so that people can have their graded copies on their displays, so that people can sit back on those nights that they just want to sit and hold a physical book and read. They don't want to stare at a screen anymore because they've been doing it all day at work. And I think that as a form of escapism, the print books for comics, print novels, I think those are going to be a very, very real way for people to escape the electronic noise.
I think also just looking at the numbers, uh, digital comics are like they're less than like 10% of sales. 65% of sales are all trade paperback graphic novels, hardcovers, and floppies are about 20 to 30%.
Mm-hmm.
Of the market. There's people that'll buy floppies, and they got to read them, boom, 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 boom.
Yep.
And then when it comes down to it, they're all put away. But now they want to read the book. Now they want to read them, and they don't remember what box they came in. They'll go to the store or order the trade online.
Right. I think one of the big appeals of the trade paperback is that they fit on your bookshelf. Neil Gaiman was actually talking about that on Twitter last year, about how he just waits for the trade paperbacks because they look better on his shelf.
They look better on your shelf, and people like to be able to sit down and read an entire story.
Yep. Especially if it's in hardbound. I think hardbound just has something to it. It holds up so much better on the shelf. It doesn't sag it doesn't sag around so much. It makes things a lot easier to deal with.
They make me feel classy.
Yeah, I mean, we're doing something with that. One of the things, all my RPG books have a hardcover option, because there's, in the RPG world, about half of the folks who go in for physical books want to be hardcover, about half of them want to be softcover. So I make them in both, and we call it even. And of course, they're on digital as well. But with comics, what we've been looking at with 47 Furious Tales, because of course it's the debut comic title for Sinopa, and it's the first one I've written that's actually seen print. We're going to do first, when we get to at the end of volume 6, we'll combine issue 6. We'll combine issues 1 through 6 in one volume as a soft cover. We'll make that available, and then we'll do a second one from 7 through 12. And as a kind of a bigger deal, we'll do a hardbound one of all 12 issues. And at that point, we're talking 264 pages, 256, somewhere around there. I don't have the stats in front of me at the moment, but somewhere around there. So, I mean, that's a big book, page count wise. And we're going to be at a little bit of an advantage with 47 because of the 6x9 digest size. It'll be a lot easier to scale that at production in a more affordable price point. But looking at what we're going to do with that in the future is really, really exciting to me, because I talked to Alexia, and I told her, I said, one of the things we're going to do once we get that together is I'm going to send one of them to Japan, to the guys who maintain the shrine where the 47 are buried. That's going to be my personal little thank you for the impact they've had on me personally.
I think the other big downside to digital is they're charging you the same price for a digital copy as they are for a physical copy.
See, I don't get that. I charge $1 for digital copy. $1, and I think that's fair.
Mm-hmm.
Drive-through, I don't have an exclusive relationship with Drive-through or with any other distributor for that matter, because I don't want to limit myself to one market. And the standard difference between exclusive and non-exclusive agreements, I mean, between Amazon and theirs is a 5% difference. Drive-through is a 5% difference. The other places I've looked at are 5% difference. It's beneficial to me. I mean, yeah, it's 5 minutes extra work when I'm checking my sales because I have to check multiple sites. But it's beneficial to me to be able to just say, hey, the 5 cents isn't worth not being able to go somewhere else. And so being able to put that up there, yeah, they get 35 cents out of every dollar, and I get 65 cents out of every dollar. So it takes me a couple of books to make $1. But I mean, if you've got people downloading and liking your stuff, every 65 cents counts, you know?
Mhm.
It adds up.
And
slowly.
even more, if they're loving the book, and they're gonna hit their social media accounts and snap pictures of it and tell people, and then word spreads. Next thing you hit issue 4 and you're up to, oh damn, I need 5,000 copies.
Yeah, I would. I'll tell you, I really am looking forward to the day when we have more than 300 backers. So we actually, the of all the campaigns I've run, the one that had the most number of backers was a RPG book I wrote about necromancy called Whispers of Persephone, which has been controversial, I guess is a good word for it. But a lot of people really enjoy that book, and a lot of people think that book is a little too evil. But I would like to see the day when we can look and see comics that, for me personally, my personal goal, I want to see backer counts above 300, because that will tell me that we've got more people who have enjoyed the book, who have told their friends, and they've enjoyed the book. Raj Mahan actually did a testimonial with Joey and Pops, and we just did this little impromptu talk about it, about 47. And one of the things that Raj brought up is that he had pledged the Kickstarter campaign, and then he bought some extra copies to give as gifts to people. And so really Raj was a one-man little distribution crew right there. I mean, because he gave that book, I think, to 3 other people, which actually introduced me to a new artist, which was really kind of cool. So I got to work with a friend of his, Greg Harms, who's working on a project that we're doing right now. It has been a really, really remarkable experience with that, just being able to expand just that little bit, just from one person having so much support for the effort. Really, really remarkable.
Oh yeah, word
One
of
person
mouth.
can make a huge difference, man. Don't think they can't. Gandhi was one person, JFK was one person. Teddy Roosevelt was one person. Malcolm X was one person. I mean, these are people who made huge impacts, and never underestimate the power of one person who likes what you do, because they can make such a huge difference, not just to you, but to the people around them, if you've done something right and good and they like sharing it with folks. It's really something to see. I'll tell you, one of the most profound moments I've had since 47 Furious Tales came out. We were at the me and several of the artists I commissioned. We were at the Garden State Comic Fest in New Jersey in 2019. It was my very first con as a vendor, and we sold actually 47 copies of 47 Furious Tales on day one. And when I went to lunch, it was me and Alexia, and the other guys were watching the booth at the moment. We went to go have some lunch, and we were sitting there eating and talking about how things were going, and how what our thoughts were on the con. And I remember I looked around and I saw 5 different people reading copies of 47 Furious Tales, and I pointed them out to her because it was just the wildest thing that I hadn't even expected. was to be at the convention, at the comic book convention, seeing people reading my book. I can't, as a writer, it's probably shameful to say this, but I cannot describe how that felt. It was the most profound feeling.
Yeah, that's definitely got to give you a boost that you're, heading in the right direction with it.
It was remarkable. It really was.
So let me ask you this very open-ended question.
Okay.
If you could pick anybody in the comic field to work with at all on anything, who would you pick and why?
First part of that, for 47 Furious Tales, Alexia Veldhausen, any day of the week and twice on Sunday. Because she has, ever since this concept was first pitched to her, she's not only had a remarkable sense of it, but she's poured so much effort into it that it just really makes the project come alive. So if I could work with anyone in the world on 47 Furious Tales, I would still choose Alexia Veldhausen. If it were on any of the other projects I have, I think my knee-jerk reflex is probably Jay Anacleto, who did the art for Aria back in the 90s.
Oh, yeah.
Just because of the incredible depth of detail and that high art style that he utilized was just simply just stunningly beautiful.
Oh, it was amazing.
I would, if given the chance, if given the opportunity, Ramon Perez. I would love to get a cover done by Ramon Perez. And for the simple fact that I just love his work. I think he is one of the most underappreciated and fantastically skilled artists of the last 20 some years. Absolutely incredible. And then Hildebrandt. If I could work on anything with Hildebrandt, I would be willing to do violence on other people to get to work with Hildebrandt. I should be ashamed of that, but it's true. I actually.
Well, if I can make that happen, I have a list to give you.
I met him at a con at the Garden State Con last year, and I completely geeked out right there. I mean, just squealed like a little girl, the whole 9 yards. And he's just like, "Hey, let me show you something." He put his hand on my shoulder and walked me over and showed me a piece that he did for one of the Star Wars movies that he had framed up and hanging in his booth. And so I'm sitting here looking at this, and it's a Hildebrandt, and I'm talking to Hildebrandt, and I'm just absolutely numb. Alexia used to work for them, and so that's how I got introduced. It was really, really something to see. But if I could ever afford to get something done by Mr. Hildebrandt, I would definitely do that.
Oh yeah, I met him last November. He was at a convention I covered for Outright Geekery, and he was like way off to like one side,
mm-hmm.
and he was basically on this end of Artist Alley, probably because he wanted to be as far away from Neil Adams as he could, who was way over here. So that's a whole inside thing. But I didn't spot him at first. Of course, I didn't have my motorized wheelchair then.
Right.
They waited until, the day before COVID hit and everybody got shut down to show up with this. I'm like, here's your wheelchair. Now you can go out and see the world. Oh, never mind. Everything's closed. So, I'm wheeling my fat tuchus around, breathing heavy like a fat guy would. It was, it was kind of like Mojo World, but, manually.
Gotcha.
And then I see this phenomenal big what at first with my bad eyes looked like a black velvet Elvis painting, but of Joaquin Phoenix's Joker.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, wow, that's awesome. And somebody walks behind me and goes, of course it's awesome. That's Hildebrand. I'm like, of course I had to take my glasses down to read anything. So I'm like, holy crap, it is. So I went around and, he had a big crowd. He's like, hi, how are you? I go, pre-COVID, I go, I just want to shake your hand. I love all your stuff. He's like, thank you.
Yeah, he was just an absolutely lovely human being when I met him. Absolutely lovely. Really great guy.
Yeah, I get to meet and, talk to a whole bunch of people that I've, loved their work for years. Like I hung out with Graham Nolan for like almost an hour.
Oh, that's cool.
And then some guy that was like 7'2", dressed in the original Bane costume came by. So of course he ran out and, started snapping. Once the first picture was snapped,
yeah,
like 32 nerds just poof in a cloud of smoke just, shut up and started taking pictures. I got to meet Mike Grell, Doug Mandrake,
mm-hmm.
and Bill McKay, and a slew of people. I met Neil, and I grew up on his Batman stuff. And a friend of mine, when I was in the hospital a couple of years ago, who knew me because as a little kid he used to come into the comic shop I worked at.
Oh, there you go.
His mother used to go to the hairdressers across the street and would drop her kid off at the This Still Isn't a Babysitting Service comic book shop.
Right.
But he was nice and quiet, and he would, he'd buy something every time he came in, from like, back in the 90s, we had the infamous quarter boxes.
Mm-hmm.
So he would, he'd buy like, a couple things, and he was very inquisitive and, loved the medium even as a little kid. And then I ended up reconnecting with him like a couple of years ago. And we started talking about, because he's from the local area, and, he's like, he mentioned somebody that I know from another comic shop. I go, oh, we're both friends with so-and-so. So you go to that shop. He's like, no, I actually don't. He goes, oh, he goes, what shop do you go to? When I told him, he goes, no way. I thought I kind of sort of recognized you. He goes, I was a little kid that used to be in there asking all the questions every Saturday. I go, oh yeah. So he was actually a nighttime security at the hospital, and he brought me in a monster album, literally, the Universal Monsters, but a record, a storytelling album that had like the oversized would-be comic included in the fold, and the entire comic book and all the album art, all done by Neil Adams.
Oh God, that's so awesome.
So
that's just amazing. I started a comic shop in 1989, 1999 rather, pardon me, and then my divorce happened, so I actually sold my shop to a friend of mine to try and work on my marriage, and then found out some stuff that led to the divorce. But that shop went on for another 5 years. And I remember in 2000, I went away for a while went back to doing work with paramilitary security firms. Then I came back, and started managing the shop for my buddy, the shop I founded. And we had a lot of kids that came in, and I still actually talk to and am friends with a lot of these people who were little kids and who were teenagers and people in their 20s and such coming to that shop. For example, Brian Lee was, I think, 10 years old when he first started coming into that comic shop. And he's a graduate of the Kubert School now, and is one of the most fantastic letterers I've encountered. And he does remarkable comic art too. He's done a couple of comics. He's got another one coming out. He's just an amazing skilled professional. And through him, I met a bunch of the other Kubert School. So really, had it not been for the comic shop, I wouldn't be making comics now.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, I met some of my best friends at the comic shop. I've been friends with the guy that owns it now since I was 15. And of course, at the time, my mother didn't want me, hanging out with him. He's too old for you to hang around with. And then my friends would be like, "Well, you're getting it, huh?" I go, "No." I go, "I'm still going to hang around with him. We need somebody old enough to buy beer." he never bought us beer.
I'm not judging.
he would buy us coffee, but and now his son is older than I was when I first met him, and I've got like 7 or 8 other friends that I've met at that store that I'm like best of friends with, to this day.
Oh yes, yeah. Actually, as far as major conventions, I think I would like to go. I mean, Doug, you and I talked about this last year, and I didn't get to go. I think I'd like to go up to Indiana for Gen Con. If I can get a booth as a vendor, I'd definitely like to go because I can bring the comics and the RPG stuff. I've already got a table reserved for Garden State, even though it's like a 12.5 hour drive for me. Most of the artists I work with are in that area, so it's good to get together and socialize with all of them over all the stuff that we've been doing. I would like to get down to Florida because we've been getting a lot of support, particularly from the collective. And I'd like to take a trip down there and just do a meet and greet. They're moving to a bigger shop, and they've been a real big supporter of 47, and here lately of all of our RPG stuff because they do a lot of RPG stuff as well. And so we managed to arrange a deal with them directly so that they can get RPG books from our source at Lightning Source directly. And HoosierCon, HoosierCon I've been thinking about too. The Frankfurt Comic Con, they're trying to throw it in January, and I was going to take and get a table for that, but I kind of have my doubts that Kentucky will be open by January. Because whereas the rest of the country spiked early, we're now starting to see our numbers increase, which is weird. I think it's just people got tired of being indoors. And now they're going out spreading COVID. What are you gonna do? But the one in Memphis, I can't remember what it's called right offhand. I'd like to go to that because it's only a few hours away from where my father lives. I can go visit him after the con. And then there's the one in Cincinnati. I would definitely like to hit if I can get a booth for it next year. So those are the big ones I'd like to reach. I don't foresee me being able to go to the really huge major Comic Cons in San Diego or New York next year unless we see some really, really big numbers on our direct sales and crowdfundings, because the booth cost is just pretty high.
Oh yeah, they're getting ridiculous. They just upping it every year.
Well, I mean, with that much traffic, you're gonna make your booth fee back. It's just you're gonna work really hard to do it, and I don't have any problem with hard work. It's just if you don't make your booth fee back, then that's a bad business decision, So you gotta try and moderate and get your convention skills down, and it's definitely something I want to do more of because I've had an absolute blast at cons all over the place when I've gone. Being a vendor was a weird kind of experience, but a really fun one. And I'd like to do the one in Lexington, Kentucky, which is actually getting bigger and bigger every year. Parking is a little bit of a problem though, so I don't know. I'll see what I can work out with that because the downtown area in Lexington is seeing a lot of construction right now. So I don't know if they're going to move it next year or if they're still going to have it at the convention center. We'll have to see. But I'd like to get a larger booth there if I can get a couple of my buddies talked in to come and helping me. And usually that's pretty easy. You get them a pass and you're usually good to go, you know? Like, here's a pass. I need you for an hour here. Here's a pass. I need you for an hour here. Everyone come and cover me during lunch. And, you know, that's how we make it happen.
Yeah, I've done that.
I mean, hey, free pass in the con, right?
Yeah, and nowadays, what are you paying? $50 to walk through the door?
Sometimes, yeah.
It's like, what do you think this is? Disneyland? Come on.
I don't know. Some of the cons are more fun than I'd have in amusement parks, really. I mean, some of the things that you can see sometimes are just really amazing. Some of the cosplayers have really upped their game. I mean, we've seen like Power Armor stuff and Iron Man and really neat little handheld simulated holograms and all kinds of cool stuff the last couple of years.
Oh yeah, I've seen. I've interviewed a whole bunch of cosplayers.
Mm-hmm.
When I was still tippy tapping on the keyboard, writing the old fashioned way, like you. And but when I went and covered that convention, and it's the first that's the first show I've been to since since the Coma. So it was a big deal. I was like, all excited. I'm like, ooh, comics and stuff. And and I'm walking around and I'm bumping into like a whole bunch of cosplayers I personally know and that I've hung out with. One of the guys that from the Boston area that he's been dressing up as Batman for like 27 years, retired Marine.
Oh wow.
And he does like a whole bunch of he does if he does anything at all, he does charity work.
Gotcha.
And he does a lot of the visits to like Boston Children's Hospitals, the kids in the cancer wing and everything else. And he actually, when I got hospitalized really bad about a year and a half ago, he jumped on the tee wearing his Batman cowl and came up to the hospital to visit me. And the next day he was in the hospital from a heart attack.
Oh no.
And he's okay now. He actually showed up to that con last year after his doctor told him he needed to take it easy and be hospitalized because he had not a mini stroke, but like a mini heart attack, like a small heart attack, like the day before. He's like, oh, I got a convention to go to. And obviously, Alfred wasn't around to stop him. So,
right.
so he went. But I mean, yeah, there were some amazing cosplayers there. But then you have the cosplayers that think they're all that in a bag of chips, that think that they should be invited as a guest and get a free table and get comp this. And you don't understand. I'm a superstar. Where? OnlyFans. Whoa, wrong show. I'm like, no. You love a character, you put a lot of, blood, sweat, and tears into, making and tailoring the costume and the props and, everything else, but you're just somebody that wants it to be Halloween, all year round, and you love superheroes or video game people, horror genre stuff. whatever it is, and you enjoy doing it, but you are not the person that you're dressed up as.
I tell you though, I have a lot of respect for the skills it takes. There's a lady who's very dear to me, who is a makeup artist on horror films, is what she primarily works on. I've known her for years and years and years, and she has produced some really incredible work. Her film, her last, well, it wasn't her last film, it was the film before that. Won several awards in the film that she just finished up recently. If it's anything at all at the level they produced in the one that won so many awards, then I think that they may just be onto something really big with that. But some of the things that she's put together really, really are enough that other friends of mine who are like paramedics are like, "Is she all right?" Like, "Yeah, that's just makeup." He's like, "Yeah, it looks a little too real." It looks a little too real. Well, it's true. It's good enough sometimes that if you're not ready for it, if you don't know her, like if she comes walking in the door and she's dripping blood, you're like, "Oh God, are you okay?" And now a bunch of us know her like, "That's a pretty good effect. You all right?" It's like we're gonna go with first. It's probably makeup, and then, "Oh, are you really hurt?" Because she's just that good.
Just clean yourself up and let's grab a bite to eat, because we know it's not real.
She is really good though. She really is.
Well, I want to thank you for joining us tonight on this episode, and 47 looks fantastic. I mean, it's the book is itself, just as a flip through, is like gorgeous just to look at. So
thank you. Alexia did a fantastic job on the art. I'm hoping that we'll have the launch approval tonight so that we can get this pushed out and get it into everyone's hands so that we can, show the world what indie comics can do.
Yeah. So keep an eye out on Kickstarter for the new crowdfunder for issue 2, and
October 21st is what we're looking at.
Just before Halloween.
Yep.
That is, from what I hear, canceled anyhow. So,
and then any crowdfund should probably be approved by tomorrow morning, I think.
And if you don't have an issue 1 yet, keep checking in with indiecrowdfund.com for when the second print of number 1 goes available there.
Yeah, I think you guys are gonna really, really love the cover that Alexia did for it. It is stunning. It really is. Absolutely amazing.
So keep an eye out for both of these, and tell everybody where they can follow you online.
You can follow me on Twitter at LL Sinopa for Sinopa Publishing. On Facebook at Sinopa Publishing's page, I can be found right there, or as just my name, William Samuel Quinton. And then on Instagram at Sinopa Publishing, and on MeWe at Sinopa Publishing.
Ooh, MeWe, what's that?
MeWe is a free social media platform that was started in kind of response to some of the stuff that Facebook was doing about 2 years ago. That they're still doing, and that a lot of people are still migrating over to MeWe very slowly. Still a very small platform, but the RPG community there is actually pretty active, and the indie comics community there is pretty active.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Well, I'll have to check that out.
Yep. Thanks for having me on, man. It's been a real pleasure. I do want to just add one thing too. We were saying about, he asked if I could work with anybody. A lot of people have asked me specifically about 47, and I tell them all the time that it really is true. Alexia is the person on the planet for that. But I'll tell you that today I was talking with her about some stuff about issue 2, and she made a comment to me that she actually is apparently just as fond as working with me as I am with her. And to hear a professional like that, say that about working with you as a writer is really something that makes you stop and want to dig in and try even harder. So I hope that all of you who are creating comics, that you're paying your artists well, that if you're an artist, that you're listening to your writer, and that you guys are developing a really healthy working relationship. Because this is my first book, and I'll tell you, learning how to do comics takes a little bit, and having someone who knows what they're doing and you two working together to try and bring something beautiful in your books is a fantastic experience. I hope that everyone gets to experience that in their creative endeavors.
And one last question.
Mm-hmm.
Lightsaber or samurai sword?
Well, I already have a katana, so I could use a functioning lightsaber in a number of ways. I mean, it would make making grilled cheese just revolutionary, So I'm gonna go with lightsaber.
Very good. There's no wrong answers, So keep an eye out for both campaigns.
Yep.
And make sure you follow them on Sinopa Publishing on social media, wherever you like to go.
And as WS Quinton on Kickstarter. Follow me on Kickstarter. That way you don't miss any of my campaigns.
And it's right there, right in front of him.
Yep. Really, really easy.
So keep an eye out for those and check out the books. I'm sure you'll love it. And until next time.
Thank you so much, Will, man.
Thanks. Have a great night.
You too.